So last week, I told you about my man out east, Job of Uz. You remember Job had the 3 R's going on. He was rich, he was righteous, he was really cool. God couldn't stop talking about him, remember? I would drop by for coffee every Monday. God would say, "Hey, Satan, have you seen Job? Have you seen how good Job is? Satan, have you seen how righteous Job is? Have you seen how faithful he is to me? It's really neat, isn't it?" This just went on and on and on. So finally, just to shut him up, and as a favor to Job, to show him that his faith in God was misplaced, I came to this arrangement with God. If I could get Job to turn away from him, then God would give me a present. And if I couldn't do that, then I would give God a present. I'll tell you right now, I wasn't exactly, spending my time flipping through the Sears catalog to find something God would like. Because I knew the truth about humans. And I had no doubt at all that by the time I was done with him, we would be seeing Job unchained. We would see the true man that he was. Because that's how you are. Nothing personal, but that's how you human beings are. You take adversity and you pile the adversity on, and you just make enough pressure there, and all of a sudden, bam! It's over. To get there, you had to do something special, just to make sure. So I gave it to Job with both barrels. I took away his wealth. He was a rich man, and I took it all away. I stole it, I burned it, I just wiped it all away as though it had never been. I took away everything that brought him joy. Not only everything he owned, but I took away his children all at once in a freak accident. By the way, speaking of things that bring joy, I killed his kids, I left his wife. Do the math on that. Then I took away his health. I gave him this loathsome skin disease that couldn't be cured, and Job bent, but he wouldn't break. And I was racking my brain trying to figure out what else I could do to him short of killing him. I wasn't allowed to do that. And I was starting to think that maybe I was going to have to start, checking God's wish list for what he would want. And then my secret weapon showed up. Actually, secret weapons. Job's friends. His good friends, Eliphaz and Bildad and Zophar. Remember, I mentioned them too. Larry, Moe, and Curly. They showed up because they'd heard about everything that was going on, and they wanted to minister to him. So they came. And they sat. They sat in silence because at first they didn't know what to say, and that really wasn't changing anything. And then they started talking. And once they started talking to Job, I knew it was a lock. Once they started talking, I knew that I had won my bet, my arrangement. So I just sat down And I propped up my feet, and I got a big bowl of popcorn and popped open a bottle of beer. Bottle of root beer. And I sat back and just watched. And it was quite a show. Eliphaz the Temanite, he told Job, he said, I'm really sorry about everything that happened. I am just so sorry you can't even imagine. But, Job, everybody knows that God doesn't punish just people. Bad things, Eliphaz said, only happen to people who have sinned. So, henceforth and to wit, Job, you must have done something wrong to deserve this. So, Job, you should throw yourself on God's mercy and repent of your sins. And Job stammered out an explanation that no, he hadn't done anything. That he had lived an exemplary, righteous life. Show me where I've sinned, he said. Teach me what I've done wrong. And they couldn't. Then Bildad the Shuhite, shook his head and he clucked his tongue and he went, dude, how long are you going to keep this charade up? How long are you going to keep pretending? Because God doesn't make mistakes. God does not make mistakes. And you were punished, so that means you did something. So confess and repent, and God will make everything good again. And Job responded to him, and he said, the game is rigged. How can any man prove his innocence before God? God is all-powerful. He is almighty. What chance do we have as human beings? I am blameless, but God is still destroying my life just the same. And we can look around and we can look at the people around us and we know that the blameless and the wicked both get destroyed. I hate my life, Job said. Then so far, the Namathite tried to reason, just bring it home. He said, Job, why are you talking smack about God? You think that's going to silence everybody? You think nobody's going to challenge you just because you're spouting this nonsense? I wish God could talk to you directly and show you the error of your ways. But you can't understand the mysteries of God. So deal with it. And Job said, it's like I told you, the game is rigged. We can't win. Not only is the game rigged, we're not even allowed to read the rules. We all know that it's not just the wicked who are punished. In fact, the wicked sometimes are not. Sometimes they prosper. And sometimes it's the righteous that suffer. So why me? Why did this happen to me? Why did it happen to my family? Just tell me that. Why? And Larry, Moe, and Curly, they just didn't have the answer. Well, the only answer they had actually was the lame one. He said, well, you must have done something to deserve it. And Job says, okay, fine, let's just say I did something. What about my children? They all died, all 10 of them. Why should they die just to punish me? And they kind of scratched their heads a little bit, and then they said, well, obviously your children sinned too. And it just went on and on like this. was driving Job crazier and crazier. And I knew why it was driving him crazy. Because, don't tell anyone I said this. I'll deny I said it. But human beings are special. You're annoying as all get out, don't get me wrong, but you're also special. Because God sculpted you out of the very stuff of creation. God molded you. With God's own hands. You were created in the very image of God with intelligence and free will and all of the problems that come with that. And then God breathed His own Spirit into you. To give you life. You're special. And you have a connection to God. So, of course, when you feel separated from God by all of this misfortune in your life, that's an unbearable feeling. It might be a pain that you can't dull, or maybe it's just this itch that you can't scratch, but it's there. And you can't help it. Job was feeling that. Job felt cut off from God. He felt betrayed and abandoned without an explanation or even a clue as to what was going on. Now, I don't know whether it was that by itself, or whether it was this circular argument that he was in with his friends, who were all trying to help him by pointing out the errors of his ways. Or maybe it was the accumulation of grief, or the idea that his friends, his very own friends, were there to blame him for his own misfortune. Maybe it's all of the above. But after a time, Job finally and completely and utterly broke. He was all alone. His friends were no help. He had no support. Worse than that, he had no answers. Life as he knew it was done. And he found himself just staring into the abyss. Darkness that was never going to get any better. And Job cried out, "If only I could hide in this darkness. If only I could find shelter from pain and nothingness. If only I could just somehow be erased and not have to suffer anymore. Where is God, and why have I been abandoned?" And that moment was what I had been waiting for. You know, you can have your Holocausts and your genocides and your planned famines and your mass murders. You know, the people that take part in those things, they are already broken and evil. I barely have to do anything but whisper some suggestions and maybe point them in a particular direction. And they'll just go right ahead. And you can have your Hitlers and your Stalins and your Mansons and your Bundys. There's no challenge for me in breaking a soul that's already dark and twisted. Give me a righteous person who is suddenly broken. Give me a boy who's just lost his father and whose world is coming apart around him. Or a mother who is grieving the child that she's never going to see grow up. Give me the darkness that descends upon a teenager who is bullied and frightened and lost in a feeling of utter despair and worthlessness. Give me that utter desolation when they have hurled prayers into the darkness and been answered with silence. Give me that feeling of betrayal when they realize that the God they thought would always keep them safe and warm and cuddly wasn't going to do that. Give me that moment. That is the creamy chocolate center of the sweet, crunchy confection of human misery. Gets me out of bed in the morning. You know, some people like Brahms. Some people like Chopin. Some people like Kenny G. But for me, when I can't sleep at night, I just put on a recording of people who have reached their breaking point and are screaming into the darkness of their souls. And I sleep like a baby. And so it was that when Job finally broke, I smiled. I smiled and I started making a list of what I would want from God. Because I'd won, and I knew it. And then it happened. And here's the thing, I guess I shouldn't be surprised that it happened, but it did. For all of their flaws and foibles and all of their weaknesses, people are still created in the image of God, and that means that God has this connection with them. It's part of what makes you so irritating. You have this connection, and you might get to a point where you feel like God isn't there, that God's not listening, but He still is. And that's what happened. Because remember Job's challenge? He said, "Oh, that I knew where I might find God. I would lay my case before Him and fill my mouth with arguments." In other words, show yourself, God. Let me make my case. Give me a chance. God heard that. God was listening. God may have waited until that moment when Job saw no hope. He may have waited until that moment when Job broke. But then God did answer. God spoke to Job. It didn't go quite the way you might expect. It didn't go the way anyone might expect. But that's going to be a story for next week.